Good evening, I'm Rajwinder Singh and I'm joined by Manmeet Singh, the producer of The Widow Colony. The Widow Colony takes an in-depth look at the lives of the widows of the men who were killed, the Sikh men who were killed in the anti-Sikh massacre of 1984. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Raj.
The movie, The Widow Colony, directed by Harpreet Kaur of Such Productions. The title, The Widow Colony, where did that originate from?
You see, there is a place on this earth in the western part of New Delhi, which is almost surreal. When you stand at this intersection, you are surrounded by all of these flats. There are altogether 1,300 flats. They're all painted in yellow, and each flat belongs to a Sikh widow. When we started work on this film, it was going to be a film that covered 1984. We surveyed Punjab, we surveyed other parts of Delhi, till we got to the location to talk to the widows of the massacre in 1984. And when we got off the taxi and we went to an organization over there and we met someone and we said, well, where do the widows live? And they said, you see around you, each one of these homes belongs to a Sikh widow.
So almost a demarcation of yellow apartment blocks.
Demarcation? Or is it a segregation of those who were massacred? I don't know that. But I do know that when I did the study for it and I looked at the statistics, and then to be surrounded by all of these homes and then realize as we knocked on these doors, when we went in, we would see pictures of 1, 2, 3, or even 4 of the men. Either they were the husbands, brothers, or sons of these widows. They were hanging on the wall. And that's when we realized, oh my God, this whole colony is of Sikh women and their pain that needs to be, that's a story that needs to be told to the world that look at this injustice. It's right in front of your eye. Much different from the saga that happened in Punjab because you have to take an address, they're scattered throughout, you have to go and find the place. But here, it's sort of like an encampment after the massacre.
Almost like a ghetto. I guess you could perhaps compare it to those in Warsaw in Poland and almost pushed into one corner of a major city.
Exactly. But our tagline says, India's unsettled settlement, which is interesting because it is a settlement of these widows, but it is very unsettling for us to view this. It's very unsettling for us to see the situation. It's very unsettling to understand all the gaps and all the wounds that are open. And I will also introduce the film in Punjabi if you allow me to. ਆਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਫਿਲਮ ਆ 1984 ਦੀ ਵਿਧਵਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬਣੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਤੇ ਆਹ ਵਿਧਵਾਵਾਂ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ 1984 ਉੱਤੇ ਫਿਲਮ ਬਣਾਣੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਈ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਵੀ 84 ਬਾਰੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ 84 ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਿਉਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਫਿਲਮ ਦੇਖਣ ਆਉਣਗੇ ਇਸ ਵੀਕਐਂਡ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਰੀਰ ਦੇ ਰੌਂਟੇ ਖੜੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਗੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦਿੱਲੀ 에ਅਰਪੋਰਟ ਤੋਂ ਲੰਘ ਕੇ ਤਿਲਕ ਵਿਹਾਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਾਓਗੇ ਤੇ ਦੇਖੋਗੇ ਕਿ ਥਾਂ ਥਾਂ ਤਿਲਕ ਵਿਹਾਰ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਕੋਨੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਵਿਧਵਾ ਕਲੋਨੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਘਰ ਇੱਕ ਵਿਧਵਾ ਦਾ ਘਰ ਆ ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਘਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦਿਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਹਾਏ ਰੱਬਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੈ ਗੁਰੂ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਨਾ ਜ਼ਬਰ ਹੋਇਆ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੌਮ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹੇ ਤੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੂਈ ਵੀ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਛੋਟਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਭੁਚਾਲ ਵੀ ਆਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਸੀਂ ਟੱਪ ਕੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਕੇ ਡਾਲਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਪਾਉਂਡ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਰੀਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਸੱਟ ਵੱਜੀ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੰਡਾਇਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੌਮ ਨੇ ਹੰਡਾਇਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਪਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਉਂ ਵਿਤਕਰਾ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਸਿਰੋਂ ਹੁਣ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮਾਮਲਾ ਠੰਡਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ 1984 ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹਾਂਜੀ
that has been 25 years
25 years ਹੋ ਗਏ ਆ ਬਟ ਹੁਣ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਆ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਰਾਮ ਨਾਲ ਡੀਲ ਕਰੀਏ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਇੰਟੈਲੈਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਡੀਲ ਕਰੀਏ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਫਿਲਮ ਹੈ ਇਤਿਹਾਸਕ ਫਿਲਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਵਿਧਵਾਵਾਂ ਇਸ ਫਿਲਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੇ those women still live in 1984 they're trapped in time the widows of the massacre, the widows of 9/11 in New York City, if you go and talk to them, the whole world, when 9/11 happens, they'll make a new story out of it. There might be some program. But the woman who lost her husband or the son who lost her mother, or some loved one, it's a different event for them. So for us, our pursuit in this was simply to bring out the story, because the women in this film, by time and again, they keep mentioning, tell our story to the world. Tell them what happened to us. And we wanted this to be an unadulterated, unedited take on their lives. And we wanted it to be brought not only to the Punjabi community, but to the Hindu community, to the Muslim community, to the Christian community, to the Indian community, to the American, Canadian, British, German community. And we have done tremendously well in accomplishing that goal.
And I was going to ask if you wish to give an introduction of the events of November 1984 for some of our viewers who perhaps aren't well versed in the historical aspects of those tragic events.
Yes. The film actually focuses on, there is a mention early on into the film on the attack on Darbar Sahib, the Sikh institutions, the Sikh psyche, the Sikh community that involved not only Darbar Sahib but 38 other places of worship. In Delhi alone during November, 120 gurdwaras were either they were affected by it. There was an attempt to destroy these gurdwaras or burn some of them. So in June of 1984, the world ought to know, if they do not already know, that the most holiest place of the Sikhs, not only in Darbar Sahib, but also in our hearts and in our rooms where we have a picture of Darbar Sahib, was attacked by the government of India under the pretext, mind you, under the pretext of flushing out militancy from there. So if the militancy existed in Darbar Sahib or Akal Takht, what was the reason for these 38 other gurdwaras?
That's right. That's something that needs to be addressed.
There was no issue other than an assault on the Sikh community. Whatever the government may say, we will take their viewpoint. But the truth that such productions brings to the world is that that massacre happened. And I will tell you, people have asked me, when did the making of this film started? The making of the film is a 25-year journey. Because 25 years ago, Harpreet Kaur, the director of this film, was 7 years old. Now, sometimes they ask me also, is it appropriate for this film to be shown to younger kids? And in Vancouver, we had thousands of kids from the Khalsa school. They came in, watched the film, and they had amazing questions, and they took back amazing experiences with them. And we were moved. And these were primary school kids who came in. And there's no blood or gore in this film. We feel that the power of a widow speaking is absolutely immeasurable. No picture can derail it. So the point being, when Harpreet was 7 years old, in her heart, a seed got sown. That Darbar Sahib that she witnessed and that picture that she saw at the Gurdwara in her home was attacked. And that Akal Takht picture that is in Babaji's room, in the prayer room, was attacked. And that trauma sort of made her life in such a way that she said that we are going to make a film. I'm going to go to school and learn how to make films. And it's amazing things that she did when growing up to sort of come to a point of making this issue the widow colony. So in Darbar Sahib, after the attack happened, there was this huge trauma throughout the Sikhs in the world, because this is our holiest place among the world's religions. If an equivalent of such an attack happened at the Vatican or in the Makkah, there would have been a huge uproar. But we are a small minority of 2%. And therefore they thought, the government at large thought, that we could crush them and destroy their heritage and destroy them and affect their psyche. But there was extreme amount of jubilation on October the 31st, which is the anniversary will happen in a few days, when Indira Gandhi was assassinated. There's of course some controversy on who actually pulled the trigger. But regardless, the Sikh community abroad and the whole world was shocked. But we were the ones who actually were, like I said, jubilated that we had our revenge. That was short-lived. Because in that same breath, when we heard the news that Sikhs were being massacred mercilessly, they were being burned alive. I know to a certain extent we had experienced that in June, but this new form of violence sort of was horrifying, because it had been going on for 6 months. Is it going to go on hereafter? What's going to happen to this 2% population in India? And as these issues came out of New Delhi, as this news got to the media, it was very disturbing to us when we would read the headline in a newspaper that said 600 people massacred in a Hindu-Sikh riot. That was the headline.
Do you feel that those kind of images, that's right, there were tragic events, are sometimes perhaps being used still to almost motivate the Sikh community? Do you think that's still valid to use those events of 1984 to motivate the Sikh community to do things, as opposed to, for instance, the widow colony, which addresses those lives that have been wrecked by that massacre, in fact?
You see, these images are a part of our history. We need to preserve them. We need to account for them. Shoah Foundation, for example, is an organization of Jews who have a video documentation of every Holocaust survivor. We started this pursuit as a part of such productions. We've not been able to secure the resources to have a video testimony of every widow. Wouldn't it be awesome if we had a video testimony of every family whose son had given up or went to the gallows in 1947 to give up their life for the independence of India? But we don't have that at our disposal. So therefore the big story is that the champions of India's freedom was someone else taking credit, whereas the people who bled for it was the Punjabi community. And yet, I will tell you what the human condition is. People will not really believe what you say, but they won't be able to refute when you show them evidence. And we lost that opportunity. Either the technology was not there, or either the maturity in our community wasn't there to record these testimonies by hand or in the form of books. We have a story of India's independence, but we do not have a story that talks about our partition, the struggle of Punjab. And in that same way, these images of 1984, a task that Harpreet took, that if we weren't to do it, and now it's still a ripe condition, it's never too late to go in and not only rely on her academic experience, but her work experience as a reporter in Washington, D.C., to take all of those experience and give back to her community its history. And not only, this film is not really about 1984. It's a film about what's the status, what is the state of these widows after 1984, 25 years later.
Almost living history.
It's a living history. ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਹੀ ਹੈ ਮੈਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਾਂਗਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਆਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਫਿਲਮ ਆ 1984 ਦਾ ਦਹਾਂਤ ਉਹ ਗੱਲ ਵੱਖਰੀ ਹੈ ਕੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਉਹਦਾ ਬਿਆਨ ਉੱਥੇ ਬਾਹਰ ਹੈਗਾ ਅਖਬਾਰਾਂ ਤੇ ਛਪੀਆਂ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਵੀ ਛਪੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਕੁਝ ਨਾ ਕੁਝ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੌਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਬਟ ਆ ਇੱਕ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਕਾਰਡ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰੈਸ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ 25 ਸਾਲ ਬਾਅਦ 20 ਸਾਲ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਹਨੇ 2 ਦਹਾਕੇ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੌਮ ਦੀ ਵਿਦਵਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਕੀ ਮੰਗਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਦਸ਼ਾ ਹੈਗੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਅਸਰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਕੀ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਇਆ ਜਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ ਇਹਦਾ ਦੱਸਦੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਰੌਲਾ ਪਾਈ ਜਾਈਏ ਕਈ ਲੋਕੀ ਅਚਨਚੇਤ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰੌਲਾ ਪਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕੁਝ ਕਰੋ ਤੇ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਕੌਰ ਨੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕਰ ਦਿਖਾਇਆ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਗਲੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਘਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਲੋਕੀ 84 ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੁਣ ਵੀ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਡਰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਡਰ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀਜ਼ਾ ਮਿਲੇ ਨਾ ਮਿਲੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਕੋਈ ਫੜ ਲੇ ਨਾ ਫੜ ਲੇ ਬਟ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੱਚ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਨਾ ਹੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਅਟਾਰਨੀ ਜਨਰਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਸੋਲੀ ਸੌਰਵ ਜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮਦਦ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਰਦਾਰ ਹਰਵਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਫੂਲਕਾ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਾਨ ਮਾਲ ਇਸ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਦੇ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਲਿਆਉਣ ਲਈ ਲਾਇਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮਦਦ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਸਰਦਾਰ ਪਤਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਣਾ ਨੇ ਮਦਦ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਇਹ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਕੌਰ ਦਾ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਆਹ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਤੋਂ ਆਈ ਆ ਆਹ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਜਿਸ ਢੰਗ ਨਾਲ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਕੇਵਲ ਸਾਡੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਲਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਲਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਇਹਨੇ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਫਿਲਮ ਫੈਸਟੀਵਲ ਆਫ LA ਹਾਲੀਵੁੱਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਫਿਲਮ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਦੇਖਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੋਣੇ ਆ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਵਧੀਆ ਚੀਜ਼ ਬਣਾਓ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇਖੇਗੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦਰਫੂਰ ਬਾਰੇ ਫਿਲਮ ਬਣੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਰਵਾਂਡਾ ਬਾਰੇ ਫਿਲਮ ਬਣੀ ਹੈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਥੀਏਟਰਾਂ 'ਚ ਦੇਖੀ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਹੋਟਲ ਰਵਾਂਡਾ ਬਣੀ ਸੀ ਕਸ਼ਮੀਰ ਬਾਰੇ ਕੋਈ ਗੱਲ ਅੱਗੇ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਲੋਕੀ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਲਾ ਹੈਗੀ ਕਲਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਕਲਾ ਨੂੰ ਵਰਤ ਕੇ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਦਾਸਤਾਨ ਦੱਸੋ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ This is our story, and we have talented filmmakers who can present it to the world, our story and our saga. I am telling you, it is a story that the whole world wants to know. What is this colony where these Sikh widows survive? Because the film, there's a film festival, Female Eye Film Festival. It's a women's film festival. And a Canadian woman came back and said, you know, I was looking for heroes and inspiration in my life. And the women that you showed are my inspiration. And my life has changed because of that. A Hindu person told me in LA, कहता सरदार जी आपकी ये फिल्म देख के मैंने सोचा पता नहीं कांग्रेस सरकार का प्रोपेगेंडा होगा, पता नहीं क्या होगा. ये फिल्म मैंने जब देखी, मुझे इतनी शर्मिंदगी आई कि मैं किस हिसाब से सिखों के बारे में सोच रहा था पिछले 20-25 साल से, और अब मैं एक अच्छा इंसान बन जाऊंगा. अब मुझे पता है आपके साथ क्या हुआ. मुझे तो लगता है कि आपके साथ ही खिलवाड़ नहीं हुआ, हमारे साथ भी खिलवाड़ हुआ है. हमने तो सोचा हिंदू और सिखों के ठीक है ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਾਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਆਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਵੀ ਸੀਗੇ, but ਉਹ ਤਦ ਹੀ ਮਾਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਜ਼ਿਸ਼ ਸੀਗੀ. It was a conspiracy. It was all planned by the government of India. It wasn't, you see, you need to have to go and kill a person. Let's say there's a riot. You need a mindset and an ability to just wake up in the morning and go and kill your neighbor. A normal human being doesn't do that. And for it to expand to a level where the government statistics now, Raj, this is an area where we talked about earlier, where I go in and not only rely on the facts, but verify the facts. And the facts, the numbers are all across the board. And I'll also answer my, my disappointment with not having accurate numbers out there. We'll come to that, remind me. The numbers are 2,733. This is the government number. The community often, and the human rights organization use a figure between 4,000 to 5,000. And this is Delhi only, but not the surrounding areas. When you talk about the surrounding area, the number expands to about 10,000. Okay? So, but there is this one particular area in the eastern part of Delhi called Trilokpuri. And in 2 blocks, a very small, street block.
How big the street block?
I'm not sure about the size, but it would take us about a minute and a half to walk this way, minute and a half. India is as congested as it is. Over 400 killings happened in just that small block. That's really the heart of where the massacre happened. And the reason, and I will tell you one thing, to understand the massacre, you have to peel it like an onion, one step at a time. The enormity of the situation was such that the police were given a task that you got to make sure that the mob goes into stages. There was a mob that would go in, they would go in and perform the killings. After the killings were done, and then the second phase would start where they would go in and do the looting. And then the third one, their responsibility was to clear the bodies and clear the evidence. During the massacre, all of the police people who were in charge in New Delhi were promoted, except for the person in Trilokpuri who was infuriated because he was actually called into some of the commissions and he was held accountable by the government itself. So this bugger goes in and said, before he, opens the lid and tells the world what happened behind the scenes, he did eventually get off the hook. But the point why he got off the hook was, he said that the number of dead bodies, I just couldn't manage them. There were way too many dead bodies. I killed more people than any of these other people, and you should reward me like the rest rather than hold me accountable. And I will tell you the most disturbing story coming out of the Trilokpuri. Your audience should remember this, and I will repeat it at every function. It tells you the level of humanity, the degradation of society that happened in the capital of the world's largest democracy. There is a doctor. You can see his shop today if you took a flight in the eastern part of New Delhi. Right across from the Gurdwara, there is this place of a doctor, Ashok Lambu doctor. This doctor's purpose in life, the pledge that he has taken, is to preserve humanity, to save people. And what he did was, he took a large machete, he was leading a mob, and he was killing and chopping people like there was no tomorrow. But the audacity that he had was, he had a medical kit with him in which he would go to the dead bodies, extract the eyes of the Sikhs he had just killed, preserve them, and then sell them for his purpose later. This is the kind of inhumane environment in which we lost our men, our brothers, Our sisters were humiliated. And that saga of what happened to our sisters doesn't exist in books, police reports. There's some mention of it in the film, and Harpreet has a beautiful poem that actually tells what had happened to a widow. We just don't talk about it. This film, if does nothing, it's the most honest representation, something that we have never done, and it opens a dialogue between the Sikhs, among themselves, with other communities. Guys, people, ਕੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਇਆ ਉਹ ਦਾਸਤਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਘੱਟ ਤੋਂ ਘੱਟ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਸਿਵਲਾਈਜ਼ ਇਨਵਾਇਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਦੇਖੀਏ. ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਤਰਜਮੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਐਨਾਲਿਸਿਸ ਲਾਈ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ. ਸੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਇਟਸ ਨੈਵਰ ਲੇਟ. ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ 25 ਸਾਲ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫਿਲਮ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ. ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਮਾਫੀ ਹੋ ਗਈ. ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਕੌਰ was not born early enough. It took that story, that trauma, took some time. And that's why I say, let that 7-year-old or 10-year-old from your family come in. And that's how the Jewish community got their justice, because they let their children, told them their story. I will tell my children the story, and I will tell them, make sure that their children know that story. This story has to be told. And maybe that child who comes to the screening this weekend, that seed is sown where the parents create this environment that he will bring us justice, that he will be our leader. And I know America has a poor track record of having good quotations from our previous president, but our current president has said that we are the people we've been waiting for. ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਬਈ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ 'ਚ ਜਿਸ ਪੈਗੰਬਰ ਦੀ, ਜਿਸ ਜਥੇਦਾਰ ਦੀ, ਜਿਸ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਡੀਕ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਆ ਕੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੌਮ ਦਾ ਦਰਦ ਲੱਭੇ, ਸਾਡੀ ਕੌਮ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਮਰਮ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜਿਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈਗੀ ਉਹ ਲਾਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ, ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਹੈਗੇ. ਕੋਈ ਪੈਗੰਬਰ ਉੱਤੋਂ ਟੱਪ ਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਣਾ. ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਇੱਕ ਇਨਵਾਇਰਨਮੈਂਟ, ਇੱਕ ਪੰਥ, ਇੱਕ ਕੌਮ ਬਣਾਉਣੀ ਪੈਣੀ ਹੈ. ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਹੀ ਲੋਕੀ ਨਿਕਲਣਗੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਦਰਦ ਸਮਝਣਗੇ. ਆਪਾਂ ਭੁੱਲ ਜਾਈਏ ਕਿ ਕਈ ਅਸੀਂ ਲੋਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਜਸਟਿਸ ਬਾਰੇ, ਇਫ ਆਈ ਕੈਨ ਡਾਇਵਰਟ ਇਨਟੂ ਦ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਆਫ ਜਸਟਿਸ, ਕਿ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਧਵਾਵਾਂ ਦੋ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਮੰਗ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ. ਇੱਕ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕਰਦਾ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਯਾਦਗਾਰ ਸਾਡੀ ਬਣਾਓ, ਲੋਕੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਨ, ਸਾਰੀ ਦਾਸਤਾਨ ਫਿਲਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਪੁਸਤਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗੇ. ਤੇ ਦੂਜੀ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਇਜ਼ ਐਨ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਆਫ ਜਸਟਿਸ, ਇਨਸਾਫ.
How do you define the type of justice that's required? Because there are those who feel that how to define justice it differs between various number of people in different communities. It's kind of a fractious kind of issue, the idea of justice after those tragic events.
Right. Very good question. Before we even talk about justice, what is a satisfactory judicial surrounding, right, or a judicial conclusion? Will we be satisfied for that? Now let me put this thought forward. This is considered our third Kalukara, our third Holocaust. There has been a Chota Kalukara or Vadda Kalukara. But let's go into modern history and demarcate 1947 as a good point to really define. Hundreds and thousands of Sikhs lost their life in 1947, whether it was during the partition or it was in pursuit of independence. Now, who do we go to ask for justice for those martyrs? Should we go to the government of India? Should we go to the British government? Should we go to the government of Pakistan if the person was killed in, on the Pakistan side? Tauba Tek Singh ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਰਿਆ ਬੰਦਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਜਾਏ, ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਕੋਲ ਜਾਏ ਜਾਂ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ? How do we give them justice? When the opportunity of justice has expired and we have missed it, maybe at that time it is appropriate to have apologies, to have memorials, to have books and discussions about it, because we weren't able to turn that around. But 1984 is not that issue that can be satisfied by an apology from the Prime Minister. No, the people who were behind these crimes are now sitting in the cabinet. And this is the absolute disappointment I have, not only from South Asians, but also from our community members, that the person behind this massacre, Jagdish Titler, was actually honored by the head of the Gurdwara committee in New Delhi. He gave him a saropa. And let's not talk about this happened a few years ago. Recently, till last year, at one of the most prestigious universities in Chicago came Kamal Nath, who was right in front of Rakabganj. What did Kamal Nath do? He was a best friend of Rajiv Gandhi. He's also in the cabinet right now. He was in front of Rakabganj. Manoj Mitta talks about it in his book. Mr. Fulka has said it time and again. It's an established fact. There are eyewitnesses. An old Gyaniji came out of Rakabganj trying to disperse the crowd and quell the situation. And this is right in front of the parliament. And yet this individual is over there. He is out there and he's witnessing this mob. Because your big boss is here, the mob can do anything. The poor elderly Gyani is burned. In front of this mob, there is no police, no army called for it. And right after that, his son tries to save his life. He's killed over there as well. And Kamal Nath over there, what was he doing for the integrity of the democracy of India? And what happened to him in Chicago? The Gurdwara, despite our repeated attempt, went in and had an honorary dinner in his name. The Gurdwara of Chicago has done this. Will you or will the people over here be able to tell the faces of the thugs from Trilokpuri? You won't tell. You need to know the names, the faces, the addresses of those who have perpetrated these crimes. We don't know that.
How have you found the fact-finding mission? Obviously, few government records, where they're placed in that, and you mentioned the discrepancy between numbers of those who were killed. How have you found that in terms of for producing the movie?
You see, a lot of work has been done. A film has been made, people didn't know about it. A book has been, there are several books on this issue. Mr. Fulka came out with this book called When a Tree Shook Delhi. Fantastic book, lots of research. There are 11 commissions. Has there been an attempt made to go in and read the findings of these commissions, verify that? What was Nanavati's commissions take? Some of these affidavits are available online. So we don't have to rebuild starting from ground zero. We take what's already done and keep working on that. We need to have international pressure. But ਜਿੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਗੱਲ ਜਸਟਿਸ ਦੀ ਆਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਮੈਂ ਲੋਕਲ ਲੈਵਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲੈ ਜਾਵਾਂ, ਅਸੀਂ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਪੈਸਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਭੇਜਿਆ ਜਾਂ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂ ਕੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ। ਮੈਂ ਸਵਾਲ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਤੋਂ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੇਸ ਐਕਚੁਅਲ ਆ ਉਹ ਤੇ ਵਿਧਵਾ ਨੇ ਲੜਨਾ ਹੈ। In the ground in New Delhi, a widow has to take the day off, go, and that's a sacrifice of salary on her part, then pay for the bus, then pay for the court fees, go attend the court hearings several times, go through this torturous process. We joke about Indian judicial system. And there was no fund to compensate her. So who's fighting the cause? We are fighting the cause, or the one who's fighting on the ground? So we never had, I don't think so, we had the maturity to understand the size of and this huge 800-pound problem in front of us. We needed to have the capacity to say, we're going to collect 5 million pounds or 50 million pounds, whatever the number be. We're going to assign a part of it to rehabilitation, a part of it to write books, a part of it to do PR, a part of it to make films, a part of it to do rehabilitation, and a part of it to ask for the justice that we want.
So would you say that, do you feel there's a lack of expertise in terms of the need for distribution, how it should be distributed?
No, it has to be done multifold. There's no right way. I'm not saying that there's any right way of doing it. ਇੱਥੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਲੌਬਿੰਗ ਹੋਈ, ਉਸ ਲੌਬਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟ ਆਇਆ ਕਿ ਬਈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜ਼ਬਰ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਜਾਂ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਇਆ, that got abetted. ਉਹਦਾ ਕੁਝ ਨਾ ਕੁਝ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਆਇਆ ਲੌਬਿੰਗ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੰਮ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ X number of people ਮਰਨੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ X minus some factor, we were able to halt this massacre. But now that it has come to a standstill, or maybe to be more accurate, it has taken a different form and shape, and that will be covered in my next film. We have to look at what has been the community's involvement. We often try to point a finger at the government or at the UN or whatever. We have to say that what have we as a community done to pursue and lobby through our MPs, through whatever resources we have. If Sikh is such a huge, large Sikh population in this country, we have so many MPs who are Sikh. Same thing in Canada, the representation is greater than in India. We need to have this ongoing pressure, year after year, program after program. It has to be a label that says 84. You think that we have forgotten? And this is a beautiful thing that a widow says. I'll tell you, Raj, I cannot come up with these quotes. These widows get credit for everything that I'm saying. When I went on this mission, and when Harpreet went on this mission, and we worked with these individual people, they gave us the power, the knowledge to go in and fight for their causes. I'm sitting over here. These aren't my words. These are words that were given to the widow. Darshan Kaur is her name, and we will go into depth of Darshan Kaur and what her case was.
We'll go into more detail after the break. We're just going to go for a short break now. The break will involve showing of the trailer. There are some disturbing images, but I do encourage you to please watch the trailer. We'll see you after the break.